Welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Betty Chen. The latest survey from the Center for Strategic and International Studies indicates that 67% of U.S. experts and 57% of Taiwanese experts anticipate a Taiwan Strait crisis in 2024. China's unilateral adjustments to civil aviation flight paths beginning in February, coupled with frequent military exercises, highlight the potential ramifications for Taiwan. Joining us today are Dr. Mignonne Man-jung, Taiwan Center for Security Studies Senior Advisor and former National Security Council Senior Commissioner. Dr. William Stanton, former American Institute in Taiwan Director and National Zhengzhi University Chair and Professor. Dr. Tzu-li, INDSR Division of Defense Strategy and Resources Associate Research Fellow. A warm welcome to all of you on the show.
Thank you.
What exactly is the M-503 flight route? Let's break it down. This is the M-503 flight route established by China in January 2015, along with the accompanying W121, W122, and W123 connecting lines, leading respectively to Dongshan, Fuzhou, and Xiamen. So let's start with today's conversation. So, Dr. Wu, could you please explain to us the sensitivity of this M-503 route and why has it sparked so much controversy?
Yes, as we know that for the flight safety reason, that's the core issue in this case. But in addition to that, national security is focused as well. We can see that the M-503, the route is very close to the adjacent zone that between the Taiwan Flight Information Region as well as the Shanghai Flight Information Region. So that causes some kind of trouble, management issues. When the flights faces some kind of emergency issues, then who going to take in charge to control the flight or manage the issue? So that need to be consulted by both sides. So that's quite sensitive for us. So that need to be talked by both sides to find out a resolution, find an exact way to do it.
Indeed. So definitely you talk about the importance of flight safety and also that's an issue of national security. We have compiled a timeline for the M-503 flight route. January 12, 2015, China announced the M-503, W121, W122, and W123 routes. March 2nd, 2015, post-negotiations, China shifted the M-503 route 6 nautical miles southwest. Also, January 4, 2018, China activated northbound M-503 and east to west W121 and others. Also, January 30th, 2024, China resumed the original M-503 and started west to east W122 and W123. So following the previous question, Dr. Wu, so the cancellation of the M-503 route's flight path adjustment will position aircraft closer to the Strait's midline. So could you please elaborate more on the possibility? How will that moving 6 nautical miles west or east will impact the flight safety?
Yes, before the offset of the 503, actually for our flight control unit, they do have powerful times to track and manage the flights along the route. But once they cancel the offset, then actually just compress the time. So it will cause some kind of troubles for those control unit. But on the other side, for the defense, air defense issues, for the Taiwan's military unit, when the time to react also compressed. So this is a big issue for our national security. So we need to look at that very seriously, and we need to find a way to resolve this issue.
Any suggestions as to, like, for now, what can we do to address this issue?
I think the first one is we know that according to the International Aviation Organization, the ICAO, there's certain guidelines say any kind of adjustment on the route that adjacent to both sides, FIR, they need to consult to each other and find safe procedures to resolve it. So I think we need to address this again and again say we need to follow international law and the rules. So there were the risk to have an accident in the air will be reduced. So that's the important things we need to address out.
What mentioned by Dr. Wu, like normally countries in the world should follow the international law and practice, especially like when it comes to like International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO. But going back to the situation of Taiwan, as we are not a member of the ICAO, do you think that China's adjustment to the flight route of the M-503 constitute a broad breach of international norm? Bill, what's your take on this?
Well, sure it is. The more that people detract or disagree or don't follow international understandings and rules of the road, the more likely it is that there'll be potentially catastrophic consequences in terms of safety, security, confrontation. And there's no reason why you should make moves that increase the possibility of that kind of occurrence. So, it's shameful, I think, that China feels so free to do what it wants to do without considering the potential consequences. I mean, if everybody acted like that, we'd have probably planes crashing to one another all the time. So it's a danger.
Chen Binghua, a spokesperson for China's Taiwan Affairs Office, described the changes to the flight path adjustment as routine to help alleviate pressure on airspace, and that China had no need to discuss this first with Taiwan. And further added, the so-called median line does not exist. So moving on, I would like to ask Dr. Chen, could you please explain to us the concept of the median line for the Taiwan Strait? What's the significance of it?
The Republic of China recognizes the Taiwan Strait median line. Basically, the scope of defense in the Taiwan Strait is defined by the median line implicit in the 1954 Sino-American, that is, ROC-US, Mutual Defense Treaty. There used to be an intrinsic understanding among PRC, ROC, and the US that the median line serves to avoid military confrontation across the Taiwan Strait. The logic and legitimacy of the median line originates from the UN 1958 Convention on Territorial Sea and Contiguous Zone. With a lack of cross-strait dialogue, a loss of confidence, and growing military might from the part of the PRC, there is no longer the tacit understanding of the Taiwan Strait median line. The need for them to stress one China policy and proclaiming Taiwan is an inseparable part of China becomes the new norm.
Dr. Zhang, you talk about all these international, say, regulations or treaty. How do you see this kind of behavior, and how will you see this impact the international order?
My view is that since M-503 belongs to the INDSR, the Air Defense Information Zone, and therefore, as long as they register with ICAO, that means that they can sort of open to the international flights due to a congested line along the coastal line.
Ben Cardin, chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, said Wednesday in a statement that the PRC's unilateral decision to adjust a disputed flight path in the Taiwan Strait is dangerous and provocative, representing yet another concerning example of Beijing's unrelenting efforts to coerce Taipei. He also said it is no coincidence that this action is being taken within weeks of a free and fair election in Taiwan, the result of which Beijing had made abundantly clear was not its preferred outcome. So moving on, in the wake of Taiwan's election, China has escalated its displeasure with Taiwan. So Bill, how do you perceive China's motive of doing such kind of decision at this moment after the election of Taiwan?
Well, I think it's another hostile, aggressive, dangerous, potentially dangerous decision by China. It's intended to punish Taiwan for free and fair elections in a democracy and a refusal to accept the results of those. It's really pretty shameful the part of such a large country should try act out such bullying behavior toward its neighbor. So it's very unfortunate, of course.
Dr. Chen previously mentioned that there was an international agreement between the U.S. and the ROC, regarding the Mutual Defense Treaty. So, do you think that Ben Cardin's comment shed light on the U.S. position regarding this matter, Bill?
Yeah, absolutely. What's significant is Ben Cardin is a Democrat. What's significant is Michael McCaul, who heads up the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and is a Republican, issued a statement along the same lines as Cardin. So there's actually a bipartisan agreement in the U.S. Congress that this is a very unfortunate, very negative, very backward step on the part of the PRC, and it shouldn't happen, and it potentially will lead to further aggression. Mm-hmm. So it's very worrisome for leaders of our Congress, and of course I'm sure it worries the administration as well in Washington.
Mm-hmm. So this year alone, China has daily dispatched fighter jets and naval vessels across the Strait's midline, with surveillance balloons entering our airspace almost on a daily basis, usually around the time of the presidential election. So what would be the aim of this kind of maneuver, Dr. Wu?
Yes, actually we can observe for the, especially before and after the election, presidential election, China's move is mainly political considerations. And through such manipulation, it will exert pressure on the public opinion for their society, in our society, attempt to influence the voters' behavior and try to influence the direction of the new government's cross-strait policy. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And also, Dr. Chen, what's your take on this? Why? We know their intention, but by keep sending these, say, vessels or aircraft, they know Taiwanese people would not like it. But mm-hmm. Why would they still do that?
Right. The impacts on Taiwan by this behavior will include at least 4 dimensions. On military dimension, it shortens the time frame of triggering earlier warning system on the SOP. On political dimension, it reinforces one China policy and oppose Taiwan's independence and show a way that China's determination on the inevitable unification. On economic dimension, it creates risk of encourage outbound relocation by business sectors. Mm-hmm. On social, psychological dimension, it adds to a stressful yearning for an improved cross-strait relations and thereby a yearning for lasting peace and prosperity.
So I'm just curious, going back to the previous statement, from the Chinese side, they said that there is no such thing as the straight median line, and they think, well, changing this kind of route is just routine for them. What's your view on this? This means show another way from China, they just disrespect the international norms. Dr. Wu.
Of course, they are always disrespect the international rule, as we know. But the things here is, the important thing is the concept is about the human's safety, especially in the air. When we look at the map, you just showed it at the right beginning. You can see the median line actually is the boundary between Taipei FIR and Shanghai FIR. And for the flights just along that route, it will cause some kind of confused about the flight control. So it's very important for both sides to communicate, to consolidate to each other, to find a better way to deal with any kind of emergencies. For example, take an example, like Iranian, there's a civilian airplane in accident, which is shot down by unfortunately by the SM-2, which is U.S. naval destroyer. That's because there's some kind of transponder issues. They say there's an F-14 transponder signal that come off from the civilian flight. It could happen in the Taiwan Strait as well. So when that situation comes up, so how can we deal with that? Both sides, not just Taiwan side, in order to avoid that kind of accident happening again. So I think that's very important. People's lives matter, not just because you can handle your route by your own self. We need to think about everyone, including the international community for those international flights through this area. It's also very important to us.
Going back to what you said previously, like security and also safety is also mentioned by Bill. We understand that changing the flight route will make China to have the possibility of sending their, whether it's military or civil aircraft, flying closer to the median line of Taiwan Strait. What kind of, say, threat or danger will that pose to Taiwan, Bill?
Well, of course, every time you reduce the time it takes to cross the Taiwan Strait, it puts an increasing risk on the shoulders of Taiwan of how to react to any movement of aircraft or more balloons coming over Taiwan's airspace. So I think that kind of continuing threatening behavior, may cause miscalculations by Taiwan as well. Taiwan's responsibility is to safeguard the security of the Taiwan people. And, if China is continually in a threatening mode, it raises the risk that some kind of conflict or mistake will, some kind of conflict will mistakenly arise. That's my concern.
Yeah, we talk about these, you can say, overlapping claims, or they have different interests, and communication will be very important to address this issue. However, we understand that both sides of the Taiwan Strait don't seem to be very eager to communicate with each other, or maybe they are, but we just don't know. Dr. Zhan, what's your take on this? If we are going to resolve this issue, what can we do?
Definitely, we need to have dialogue so that both sides can build a mutual confidence. For lack of confidence, it is really, as long as they feel that they comply with the ICAO's provision by registering, and of course ICAO will make the public announcement about a new route that they approved. And then so the height of 20,000 and then 30,000 domestic line and international line will not create much of a flight safety issue, in my view.
Everybody says that there should be dialogue. The U.S. is always saying we want to see more dialogue. But if the basis of dialogue is, as Beijing asserts, that you have to agree to the one China principle, there's no possibility. It's not dialogue, it's a monologue then.
Right.
Oh, we all agree there's one China, so you have to do what Beijing tells you to do. That's not dialogue. So that undermines the whole idea of the communication that is quite necessary.
Also, Taiwan, again, is not a member of the ICAO, so it's impossible for us to resort to the official means of filing a complaint or asking the ICAO to stand by Taiwan's side. How can we address the situation if China make any further changes that may seriously undermine Taiwan's safety? Dr. Wu.
For the military, I'm a retired Navy officer. My point is we need to be ready anytime. Just like Papa Rose just said, even before 2027. But we are facing an imminent threat right now. Any kind of scenario in the Cross-Strait might happen. So our military need to prepare any kind of solution to meet that kind of challenge. Maybe say that. For example, the opening of the W122, W123 from Fuzhou and from Xiamen to the M-503 is the eastbound direction actually just heading to Taiwan. It created a tremendous pressure on all the air defense system. How can you judge those coming target or object as a foe or friend? It's very important for us. And the time is very short since the distance they are taking right now is the shortest one. So we don't have much time to deal with that. So that's the things we need to address from our Defense Department. And I believe we are prepared for that, but since the time compressed, so the decision making is very need to be made in a very short time. But any kind of mistake might trigger a very large casualty event there. So I said it's important for us to.
Definitely want to try our very best to avoid any miscalculation or any possible conflict in this region. But from February onwards, both Chinese civilian and military aircraft have been frequently spotted near the Strait midline. So how will the situation impact Taiwan? So maybe Dr. Chen?
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, definitely there are many dimensions, militarily, politically, economically, and business transaction definitely will impact on Taiwan negatively.
I think one thing that might be done is any Taiwanese who are thinking of crossing the strait should think about some of the potential risks. We might want to advertise that to mainlanders as well, Chinese people, to say that, you know, given the changes in the flight patterns that Beijing has ordered, there are risks involved in taking those flights. I think that's only fair if you're going along a dangerous route to let people know about it.
So I'm just curious, for now, will the passengers, especially for civil passengers, will they get the information as to, oh, I'm taking a flight that may fly on this route or that one? Can we obtain such kind of information? Dr. Wu?
Well, not only for the international flight, they will show on the screen, actually in front of your seat when you fly. But I doubt in China. For those domestic flights, especially I myself have worked in Shanghai for about 10 years. And most of the time, they are just don't let you, even they don't let you open the window because you are flying by a very secure area. So or there's a military exercise around. So it's a heavily controlled conditions. So I doubt within, especially right now, China just announced that for those airplanes fly through the M-503, OW121, 122, 123, most of them will be the domestic flights. So I doubt that the people on the plane, they will know which way they are going.
And going back to what Bill said, well, people, if we don't have the information, they don't get to choose. So,
well, Taiwanese can at least choose.
Right. So my next question is, well, we know that there are some analyses suggesting that China aims to fortify its military presence as a strategy to undermine the first island chain. So what are your thoughts on this assessment, Dr. Chen?
Yes, I concur with the analysis because of the 3 reasons. Number one is that the first island chain initially was conceived in 1951 to fend off the communist camp during the Korean War. It was meant to set up naval bases in the West Pacific area, and then so that they can deny or restrict access by the Soviet Union and the PRC. Now, number 2 is that the PLA, the People's Liberation Army's anti-access and area denial military strategy is to project power capability within their charted map, which overlaps with the first island chain. Now, in 2022, when Pelosi, the House Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, concluded her visit in Taiwan, the PLC staged the so-called Taiwan blockade simulation in the 6 target areas all around Taiwan. It is not only crossed the midline, but also reached the first island chain on the east coast of Taiwan. The rehearsed military drill could easily be translated into combat military operation. Thereafter, The frequent presence of China's war machine includes aircraft carriers, large destroyers, submarines, and hypersonic missile certainly undermined the first island chain.
What's your take on this, Bill?
Well, I think there's also a reaction setting into these threats, these challenges. For example, we see that the Philippines and Vietnam are talking about more military coordination, cooperation. We've already seen changes in the position of Japan and South Korea vis-a-vis China. I think this kind of cooperation, this kind of hedging of bets because of Chinese perceived aggression, I think is beginning to take form in a kind of informal alliance among countries to somehow stop this encroachment on others' territory. There's also problems that China is now, I was just reviewing a study the other day that, for example, China built all of these artificial islands in the South China Sea, and it appears now a lot of them are beginning to sink. That, the construction was very quick. It didn't take into consideration the surrounding environment, what would happen. That fortified island chain may cease to exist one of these days.
Definitely, we have to keep watching the development of these important routes, and let's hope that we can enjoy safety and security in the long term. If you like our show, please search for us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, and hit subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching our show today. Stay safe and see you next time.